Hey guys, welcome back. I just wanted to give a quick update, the surgery, all that kind of stuff, kind of what the next projects are. Again, the reason there haven't been a lot of videos is because I had surgery. I have been released to go back to full due work. You know, I don't have any restrictions now, but there still is knee pain, so I'm going in and getting I got an injection in my knee of Visco. It's rooster comb, or what they used to call rooster comb. I think Visco is a synthetic that does the same thing that rooster comb, the comb on a rooster. They used to take what's inside there and inject it in your knee to lubricate it. So I had that done, and while the shot wasn't overly painful, the result of having it put in there for the better part of 24 hours was pretty painful. Like, I couldn't even fully extend my knee. When I got up to stand up from after getting the shot, I couldn't. It was locked. I couldn't move it, and it was fairly painful. That went away totally after about 27 hours, and it can take up to like 4 weeks to work, and that might only last 6 months to a year. So we'll see what the benefit and payoff of that is. I'm not sold on it yet. But anyway, that's the update. So hopefully I can start putting out a few more videos. That's the plan anyway. And this video is going to be a backyard orchard garden update. It's the spring. I've got potatoes planted already. So I'll walk you around the yard and show you that stuff. And I'm going to make another waterer for the chicken coop. The biggest thing of taking care of the chickens for my kids, the biggest complaint is having to water them because they have to carry the buckets out, fill them, and put them back in. And when we're going on vacations, if I have somebody do it, I don't want to have them carrying 5-gallon buckets of water. So I'm going to do something that can be filled with the hose from the outside of the coop, but I want it to be clean like the other ones are. You know, I just don't want to have a bucket of water in there that gets filthy nasty. This water stays clean because it's sealed and we use these little red nipples. So that's what I'm going to do with that, which should be a fairly easy thing to do. Anyway, let's get started. So a couple days ago I tilled the garden up and I got it ready to go. I still have to rake it and put my lines in and then get seeds planted. This year we're going to do peas, peppers, green beans, and onions in this garden. And then in the box planters we'll have tomatoes again. And in the black cylinders I have potatoes already. In the little box there with the fence is going to be cucumbers. We're going to do a lot of cucumbers this year because I got like 2 last year for all the cucumbers we planted. And I'd really like to try doing pickles. You can see the apple tree is in full bloom. Hopefully we get a few apples this year. In the strawberry bed, there was a big die-off. This whole half, or a little more than half, almost all of it died off. And those were the everbearing. Everything I bought was supposed to be everbearing, but I think the only ones that were actually everbearing were in this half. So I don't know if a disease or what happened, but they all died, or most of them died. So I bought more everbearing, this time from our local Fleet Farm and Walmart, instead of ordering them online. And I've got those planted. I don't know, I think I have a dozen in there that I had to plant. So we'll see how those come back up and what we have for strawberries this year. Might be a lean year for strawberries. And I think it's been a couple years ago now I planted that tree. If some of you have been on the channel for a while, maybe you can remind me. But I think this is the 3rd year for this apple tree. I don't remember. I just don't. So I don't see any flowers on it yet this year, but it seems to be coming along doing fine, which is good. In this spot is where the plum tree was. I cut that down. I cut that down right after so it was this still snow on the ground. After I was released to go back to work with only a restriction of, I don't remember. And we're putting in 2 raised beds. Now that's mostly compost, and they're not going to be ready this year. But I needed a place for compost to finish off. And yeah, I like the raised beds because it helps keep stuff from creeping in. Anyway, the one's made out of a telephone pole that was for free. And the joints on it aren't perfect, but it's going to serve the purpose I want. I think ultimately these are probably going to have potatoes and onions in them. So I'm not, they don't have to be fenced off and that kind of stuff. The one with railroad ties I bought from Menards, and those are like $20 a piece, but those joints came together pretty nice. And they should be good additions. The plum tree we just weren't using anymore, so it didn't make sense to keep it here. Of course, back there are the raspberries and blackberries, and there's some asparagus growing in there. That's kind of a tangled mess, but that's what that is. No bees again this year, so unless a hive shows up, we won't have bees. This is our little apple tree, or our 3rd apple tree. It's the smallest of the 3, but it was planted at the same time as that other one was. No flowers yet, but it's coming along good. So in these last year, I think I had squash, pumpkin, and cucumbers, and I did get 2 or 3 decent pumpkins. I don't think we got any ripe squash. I ended up giving what was there to the chickens because they never ripened. And I think we got 2 cucumbers, like I said, so it's going to be all cucumbers this year. That's one of the cherry trees, and as you can see, there's a lot of flowers. And as long as we don't get a really hard frost, which we're not anticipating, we should have a lot of cherries again this year. The pear tree, I'm going to expect a light year of pears because there weren't a ton of flowers, and it's the first tree to flower every year. So, which is okay. We don't eat a ton of pears, but there were a few, so I hope we get a few. That tree's not doing the best. You can see the bark is kind of peeling there. So we'll see how many more years that makes it. And then of course you got the other cherry tree behind, and that is again going to be I think a great year for cherries, which the kids like. They just hate picking them and pitting them. And we have the compost pile, of course, where most of that compost came from in the 2 new raised bed gardens. But started again this year with grass clippings already. And in this area I have potatoes again. I still would like to get that built up. My intent was to get something. I think I'm going to use railroad ties now after doing that one raised garden bed with railroad ties. But I want to build that up so it's more level and squared off, and then fill it in more. Hopefully I get to that this year, but I got plans for stuff, and you get busy and all that kind of stuff. So, but as for now, that is it for the garden. Hopefully I get to get some more stuff planted today, and if I do, I'll show you that. Otherwise, let's start on the chicken coop. I want to fill some of the edges in the chickens have picked away at, so I'm going to go around the yard and pick up rocks. You can see it, kind of a bunch of little chunks of rock up there. I'm going to grab those and put them in there so that doesn't all wash out, and they pick that out too bad. And then I'm going to start on the water.
girls. Alright, so this is what I mean, where it's kind of, and you can see that post is barely sitting on anything. So I want to get some rock up under there so it doesn't wash and get too. And this is mortar from tile on a bathroom floor that I just dumped in the yard or under a tree. Some broken concrete and whatnot in here. So I'm just going to take this and kind of dump it along the edge. And then my bucket, my watering bucket, I'm going to build, the faucet is on the side of the house right over here. So I want to build put that bucket somewhere in here. I have these branches from the sit on, which they like, so I don't want to interfere with that too much, but I'll set this upside down, put the bucket on it, and then a conduit coming out that we can fill. So in the winter, I have both the waters in the shed. Once we're past the consistently frozen stage, I move one out here for them. And they're both empty. They go through more water than you think. But by putting this on here, then they don't sit on here and poop everywhere, so I don't have to worry about it being too dirty. So I'm going to fill this and the other one and get back to work.